The name of the song is Primavera, written by Daniel Valdez. In fact, dedicated to my little brother Carlos. Who used to sing this with me years ago. And as she sings her song. As she leaves, she sings her song. Her beauty makes men stop and stare to gaze her loveliness so rare that fills them with as she leaves, she sings her song that turns the leaves into a brown. For summer is here and she can't stay. Oh, that's the last love, and that's God's way.
Now, wow, that was pretty awesome. That was Miguel Vasquez, and he's a man of many, many talents. He's here to share about how he's helping our vets, being able to work with them and being able to do many things to help them get through what they're going through right now coming from war. So I'd like to share a little bit more about him. He's got a lot of things to share about, a lot of ways that he's got to be able to get things going. So I'd like to introduce Miguel Vasquez. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Good. Okay, so that was beautiful.
Thank you.
That was beautiful. Got a beautiful voice. You're a man of many talents, huh?
Thank you. They just got a little nervous at the beginnings. Haven't been on stage with a beautiful lady for a long time.
Oh, my goodness. Well, thank you. Can you share a little bit about, I want to go into about what you're doing because I am so excited. You're helping our troops. You're making a difference with them. It's awesome.
Thank you. Well, What I'm doing is, it's called energy psychology. It's one of the things that we do that I've learned the last 3 or 4 years. I've been learning and practicing.
Mm-hmm.
It's called emotional freedom technique. Is the approach to we use the same meridians of energy that acupuncturists have been using for 5,000 years to release disruptions of energy. The thought is that everyone has a meridian of energy, at least one, and they simplify by saying several. Some correlate to some disruptions and some to others. But it's an invisible meridian of energy, and the Chinese have said for, like I said, 5,000 years that any illness is caused by a disruption in your energy system.
Makes sense?
Yes, and since I am a Vietnam veteran, Vietnam combat veteran, came back in 1969. I was with the 1st Infantry Division, engineers attached to the 1st Infantry. I went through a lot of challenges dealing with PTSD, and me and some of my buddies used to joke that we survived the war in Vietnam, and now we've survived the war here at home.
That's true, huh?
So, and all my experiences that I've been through, I see that a lot of my brother and sister veterans, Vietnam veterans, and veterans from all wars, and actually other people that have suffered traumas, are suffering needlessly because through this new type of alternative type of treatment, it's painless, it's a very friendly approach. You don't take drugs, not even prescription drugs, unless, of course, the doctors have them on them and they prefer to stay on them. But most of us that are doing this also study natural remedies and to replace when it's appropriate, to replace the prescription drugs.
Okay, let me ask you a question. When you came back from Vietnam, how did it affect you?
Well, I'm trying to think of a good example. I mean, if somebody was in a real serious car accident and they saw several people die and they almost died themselves, possibly were injured, and then they just took them and put them back in school or work without any counseling, without any understanding. You know, we're pretty clear on that. That's not the right thing to do, right?
That's right.
But when we came back from Vietnam, there was no counseling. There was no real acknowledgement of, well, not even really that you went and served and you were there a whole year. You put up with what you did.
Sad, yeah.
Instead, we had all the good, well-intentioned protesters and everybody that most of us felt like we wanted to join, but even they were like hard on us.
Well, it was like a double whammy for you guys when you came back.
It was very tough, and the reception that most of us got or didn't get when we came back just kind of added to the trauma and to the denial that a lot of us get in when we have this, what's called post-traumatic stress disorder. And it goes untreated for a long time. It becomes what they call complex PTSD. It develops a character of its own. And then with all the drugs that people are given, the prescription drugs, just now the pharmaceutical companies are admitting that a lot of their prescription drugs actually are causing more depression and are actually causing some people to become more suicidal if they were suicidal already.
Wow.
So it's a great picture if you look at it that way, but the message that I want to give to my fellow veterans and all my brothers and sisters from the Vietnam War and all the other wars, that you don't have to continue to suffer. What we learn in these natural healings is it's not really the trauma that bothers you for long periods of time if it goes untreated. It's the perception of the trauma. And by changing, this is an oversimplification because it's not this easy. The people out there that are going through this know that it's not this easy, but just for simplification's sake, for discussion's sake, if you can change your perception of how the trauma is supposed to affect you, that's your first step or one of the first steps in healing. And forgiveness is a very part of all healing. That's one of the things that I always tell my clients and people that I work with. In any emotional trauma or any emotional disruption of energy, that's one of the things in the process of healing is accepting that there is a problem, identifying the problem, and forgiving yourself for having the problem. That's a large part of why people don't heal.
I believe that.
And the guilt trips that we learn from as children, depending on what religion that we were raised or who our parents were or weren't. Coupled with all of the guilt and the shame and blame that we picked up from being combat veterans, and then with no release, it makes it very complicated. It makes it very difficult for people to adjust. But self-forgiveness and self-love are two of the things that I think are like at the core of releasing and the core of need fulfillment. And it's very difficult to reach that without the understanding and first setting an intent on healing, healing yourself and accepting the help from other people. So I go to different veterans groups, veterans clinics, where they have PTSD groups, and I offer my services free. I go speak with them. And if anyone out there would like to talk to me, they can feel free to call me. I won't charge them for sessions. And or other people that are in groups, if they want to call me, I can call their group leaders and I can go speak to their groups. And it's worked out very well because I can relate a lot of doctors and a lot of practitioners and a lot of counselors. Talk to the guys, but if they're not Vietnam veterans or they're not veterans or combat veterans, it's hard for us to relate to people that haven't been there. It's hard for us to believe that somebody else could believe what we're going through or feel what we've gone through. So
that's why you're doing all this. Is because you want to be able to give back, right?
Right.
Now also, how fast is the healing process versus going for counseling and therapy or anything like that? How much of a how much faster is it going to work for these people that come back with that?
Good question. Let me I'll try not to make these stories too long because they're so close to my heart that sometimes I want to just tell a lot of stories. One in particular, one of the gentlemen that was referred to me by a psychologist that I knew was having a real hard time sleeping. He hadn't slept more than 2 or 3 hours at a time for like 20 years.
Wow.
Really, really hard times. Going through counseling. He had been going through on and off to traditional counseling for since he'd been back 30 some years. So we had like a 2-hour session of the tapping. What we do is we tap, we use the meridians. Instead of putting needles, we tap as we bring up the traumatic experience to try to resolve. We're communicating with the brain here again to oversimplify things so anybody can understand. Communicating with the brain that there's a disruption here. This intrusive memory is bringing up a painful memory that's disrupting my energy, so I want the body to help me resolve it.
Wow.
So we did that with this gentleman. And we talked a lot. I'm a counselor as well as a healer, so we do a lot of talking and to bring up what we call the setup, to bring up those memories that are the worst, and we try to pinpoint them to get to the core issues. So at this point, he had multiple traumatic incidents. So we were able to talk with him and tap on several of them. And the next day, he called me and says, "What did you do to me?" And I thought, "What do you mean? Nobody's ever complained. Everything's been fine." He says, No. He says, "That's a positive thing. I was able to sleep 10 hours last night for the first time in over 20 years." He slept 6 hours without interruption, and then he woke up, and then he was able to go back to sleep for about 3 to 4 hours. He said, "I slept almost 10 hours."
That quick it worked?
In 2 hours. And he still had a lot of other things because I say when you have it this long, it's difficult, and there are different aspects. And so they liken it to an onion and peeling back the skins of the onion to get to the core. But we were able to work together for several months off and on, and he still emails me, calls me once in a while, and he's doing much, much better.
Now, a lot of the guys that come back, whether it's from Vietnam or the war right now, they go into drugs and alcohol also. So now, when you're working with these people, now you're working in the overall picture to get them back to normal, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of aspects, as I said, a lot of symptoms, and unfortunately, well, I don't want to be critical or sound overly critical, but traditional medicine and traditional treatment of PTSD specifically, I think has done a lot of harm to a lot of people with all the drugs that they give them.
I believe that.
There's a lot of pharmaceutical companies that are creating things to treat the symptoms of the drugs that they've created, and so it's like a never-ending cycle of non-healing, of treating symptoms. And a lot of the people are hooked on alcohol, they're hooked on prescription drugs, they're hooked on non-prescription drugs. It's a form of self-medication. I think that almost everybody that drinks a lot, they're numbing themselves. It's hard for us to deal when we come back. When you're in combat and something happens, you don't have time. They would yell at us for even talking about it after an incident where we had casualties. You don't have time, they would tell us. You don't have the luxury of grieving. Leave that for later. You don't... So you kind of bottle up your feelings and you do what you have to do to get back. You do what you have to do to protect each other and yourself. And when you come back, you're back here trying to relate to a loved one. And you can't just turn it off. Turn off that, So it's very difficult. And a lot of these brothers and sisters that have been less fortunate, that have gone to the use of unprescribed drugs or too much prescribed drugs or too much alcohol, a lot of them have developed a lot of problems. And I think that those of us that are trying to give back need to to see more, because it's very difficult. If anybody listens to anything I say today, please, if you need help, or if your brother, your husband, anybody needs help, give them the numbers or tell them to go to counseling somewhere to somebody, because there's a lot of the guys that are really hurting inside, but they haven't been able to ask for help. I go to these, sometimes I've had as many as 26, 28 people in a group, and I get maybe 1 or 2 or 3 calls. And sometimes they don't call back after the first time. It's hard for people to open up again. It's like opening up a very painful can of worms. And so I want to encourage those of you out there that know somebody that needs help, or if you need help, feel free to call. Just between you and I, just confidential call. And I've been there, done that. Like I said at the beginning, I survived Vietnam, and I think I survived the war here. I'm here where I am now. I'm in a master's program in spiritual psychology at the University of Santa Monica. In Santa Monica in June, I'll have earned my master's degree in psychology, so I can do this in a more formal sense. Right now, I'm a life coach, counselor, and energy healer, and also a Reiki master and angel therapy, certified angel therapy practitioner.
What's that?
Doreen Virtue is a, they call her the angel lady. She talks to angels, and she's a very intuitive person, and she's written about 18 books, I think, at the last count. And she teaches automatic writing for other people that want to write. And the connection with spirit, she channels angel spirit and angel guides and spirit guides. And so I read all her books and then took a 4-day workshop, intensive workshop, to learn not just to read cards, but to intuitively be able to do readings and counsel people from channeling the angel, the wisdom of the angels and the energy from the angels to do healings that way. So I like to learn a little bit of everything from everybody, so see what I can do in the path that I'm on now. I feel really good that Spirit has put me on this path, and I think that I can help a lot of people, but we wait for people to ask for help, and we just offer what we can. And that's the main problem that I was saying. A lot of my brothers and sisters, Vietnam veterans and other veterans, I find it hard to ask for help. So that's the main message I want to get. It's okay. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to live life just like everybody else, enjoying your family, enjoying the love that you have inside for them, enjoying being able to express it and to receive it as well. And that's what some of the main difficulty that I find with most of the people that I do help, that do come to me for help, is getting to that point. Is
that where you're at now? Are you at that point now, where you can give love and receive love and all that?
Oh yes, I have a 14-year-old son and a 24-year-old daughter, and whenever I thought of them in the times when I was troubled, and it makes me a little emotional, because I feel so good now that I can freely just express verbally and physically hugging and express my love and feel the love they have for me. And that's what makes me really sad when I see a lot of Vietnam veterans and other veterans that can't do that. They have this edge about them that they're afraid to let inside. It hurts. It's difficult to let your guard down, to be hurt again, because we were close to a lot of guys that we had to put in body bags. That's a tough thing to do. It's a tough thing, and I used to not be able to even talk this much about it without breaking down myself for many years.
Wow.
But thanks to, Robin Duncan is one of my teachers, and she's the one that helped me at first, introduced me to EFT. Beautiful, wonderful. She's one of my earth angels. And she helped me release a lot of this so I could.
Yeah, I had her on my show. And she sang too.
Yeah, she's a wonderful, beautiful person. And then I did some sessions with Gary Craig, too, who is the founder of Emotional Freedom Technique. This is the main technique that I use, that I learned from Robin and from Gary Craig. And there's a lot of people doing this, and really they don't have to be veterans to be able to help others. And I don't only help veterans, too. I can help other people. Some quick stories. I've also helped a woman that was deathly afraid of worms. Another one was deathly afraid of snakes. In a couple of hours. Took about 2 hours.
How about someone that's afraid of women, men?
Afraid of men and women?
Oh. Not afraid of men. I'm sorry. Just got to throw some humor in here. Worms.
That's a
Worms.
Good well, it turned out it was a very complicated thing. This was in Mexico. I went and studied in Mexico, too, so I can also do this in Spanish.
Okay. So you're bilingual.
I'm very bilingual, bicultural, and right now by myself.
Okay. That's nice to know.
So there's a lot of things that the phobias, fear of flying, fear of snakes, fear of the water. I've helped people with all those fears. Just stress. I'm studying and doing more with stress reduction, because everybody in the society is stressed out. Yeah. And most of the physical maladies that we have are energy related, if not all of them. And I believe that they're all stress related as well. So this is a very friendly way to do things. Like I said, we just tap on certain points as we talk and bring up the memories, the painful memories, and then release them with visual imagery of what the pain looks like. Sometimes we can really get in touch with it and release it faster. So sometimes within 2 or 3 hours, or sometimes 15, 20 minutes, people have released things that they've had. Yes, it is. And it's all inside us. See, everybody, what all healers do, they're not really healers. They're channeling energy to empower the person to heal themselves. Anybody can heal themselves. We just don't know it.
Where does this come from?
I think it all comes from spirit. I mean, who gave us
God?
life? From God. Who gave us life if it wasn't God? And when we are far from being centered in who we are, it's too bad that sometimes some of us wait till we're really down before we look up and really ask for help. But so be it. If that's the way it is, that's okay. Wherever you are in your process, all you have to do is look up. Invoke love to yourself. Everything starts with self-love, self-forgiveness. From there, you can go forward, you can heal anything in yourself, and then you can help others heal.
Do you believe this is a calling from God for you to do what you're doing?
Yes, definitely.
So, in other words, you needed to go through what you went through in Vietnam to be able to do what you're doing, because it is an impact. I mean, how can someone come to you and say, this is what I have, and you've not been there, and say, well, I understand. How could you understand? Yeah. But because you have been there and you do understand, you know, it just draws that many more people to you to be able to get the help that they need. Exactly. I think that's awesome. I mean, I've dealt with a couple of, I work in a DUI school, and I have this young kid, 21 years old. He's been in Iraq twice. Wow. Can't sleep in the night, has to drink, got in trouble. What they do, put him on medication. I mean, the guy's just almost given up, you know? And it's sad. It's sad to know that that's happening. In fact, I'm going to give you his number so you could call him.
Definitely. I just thank God that I was given the wherewithal to come out of it. I did drugs myself for a long time. I abused alcohol. People didn't even know how much I was drinking, how much. I was a very functional workaholic. I worked from the morning till I got up. I would get up at 3 or 4 in the morning and work. Wow. And I would drink several beers and sometimes a shot or two at lunch and go back to work. I had many relationships unsuccessful. I mean, it's a hard thing to admit when you're going through it. But thank God I am at a point, to answer your question now, where I feel that whatever I experienced and whatever I'm experiencing now, I can forgive myself. I can stop and forgive myself when I start getting down on myself or feeling guilty, because I know that that's another lesson. That's a lesson that I can, for me to learn, that, and it's going to make me stronger and more prepared to help other people. And I think when we reach that point where we can observe ourselves and see what the path that we're on, it makes us much more susceptible to receiving that energy from others, that love from others that we need to make us strong enough to heal. Awesome. And I think that what me and a lot of other people that are wanting to help veterans especially are looking for, that little bit of awareness in them that we can help them overcome the fear of asking for help and opening up again. It's a difficult thing to do. I know, because I went through it. It took me years and years before I started asking for help after I came back.
Did you not think you had a problem?
At first I was probably too drunk to even deal with the problem, because one of the guys told me one time, no problem. The only problem is that sometimes I run out of beer. I go get more, no problem. And I started thinking about that. It was funny at first, but that's where we were at that time. But then when you start realizing that there is a problem, it's very difficult to admit, first of all, that you have a problem, because you know where it's going. You got to bring up all those very painful memories, all those very painful experiences, which we haven't dealt with. The further we push them down, the further we feel like they're further away, but they're not. They're always right here. And just that the bigger the bag of emotional baggage gets, the more it weighs you down.
Yeah.
So the sooner we start emptying that bag, the sooner we're going to start feeling better and feeling the love. That's what we got to look for.
I think that's awesome, because I've been in counseling for many years, and I've even been in the hospital for stress, and I've just gone through a lot of stuff. But now is when I'm starting to go through healings and getting help, and to me, God, it's just so much more faster. And for you to combine counseling and healing together to help these vets, that's what it's about. That's awesome. That is really awesome. Miguel, I want to thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So much
Pleasure.
for being on the show, and I think we're gonna do good. You can get a hold of me. They can get a hold of me through my number, and then I'll get back to you.
You guys call me.
Yeah. Okay, I'm Carolina Castorena. This is Visions of Inspiration. This is for our troops. Ask for help. You've got somebody here that can get you through it much faster. Okay, God bless all of you, and God bless our troops.
I'll give you peace. I am here. You need not worry. I'll be with you until the end. I know sometimes you wonder if I leave you all alone, but I never really leave